Less than 30 days to expose Australia's financial cops. Martin North, John Adams, in the interest of people. Hi, John, we're back.
Happy New Year.
And to you too. Boy, it's been a big 2022, and I think 2023 is going to be even bigger.
Indeed. So again, some of the audience may say, well, we haven't done a show in about 6 weeks or a month and a half. So what has happened? So the one thing I can say, Martin, is that we did a show back in May called the coming hyperinflation of Australian property, and the whole logic of that show, Martin, was about the so-called pivot that was going to come in monetary policy, which everyone is still talking about, and we're going to get into that soon, because we're starting to see interest rate rises starting to slow, and obviously we're starting to see a few more cracks in the financial system, and obviously there is concern about the financial markets not unraveling. So that pivot, even though I thought it was going to happen in 2022, I think it's we're fast approaching that point. And even with the Western central banks, there's a view that there's only maybe a couple of more rate rises before they have to pause and start to reverse. So we're getting close to that point. But the point I did say in our May show about property was that given where interest rates policy was going to go, that late 2022 would be not a bad time to enter the property market or to make a move in the property market because of in terms of the pivot. So you want to be able to time your property purchase or transaction close to the top of the interest rate cycle. So given the three children that I have, it was time to put my words into action. So I said November would be the month, and so I did go ahead and purchase a new property in the last few weeks, and we're going to sell some property as well. But in the process of the last month and a half has been packing and moving and unpacking and getting the existing properties ready for sale, etc. So it's been a quite intense journey, and I've learned quite a bit. Even though I've been through this process before, that you always learn new things about when you have to go and buy a new property and sell a new property and all the ins and outs. And I think we have some interesting content to talk about those aspects moving forward. But our main contribution to Australian society last year was our work on financial crime, ASIC, getting 2 inquiries established by the Parliament. The Senate Economic References Committee submissions are due on the 3rd of February. So that means that we have, from today, Friday, we have 29 days in which to expose ASIC and their failures. And so that's the purpose really of the show is to bring to attention, now that we've gone through the Christmas New Year period, we're in the home stretch, and for those viewers and those people more broadly who have an important story to tell, or who have a contribution about how ASIC could be better, now is the time, the next 29 days, to tell your story. Because I will say this, Martin, I did have someone who called me last night who was a victim of the Wolf of Woy Woy story that Four Corners had, and this individual was highly frustrated with the entire system of government, ASIC, and this person is a veteran who has spent 24 years in the military and gave a good chunk of his life to the country, and he just said, what's the point of me writing to this inquiry, because nothing's going to change. And so there is a huge level of frustration, and obviously there is despondency and a lack of belief that we can actually move the needle.
Yeah, Joel, and I'll tell you that I've had a number of conversations myself as well with people who've said precisely the same. They've all got the same war story, that they've been taken to the cleaners one way or the other. They've tried to engage with ASIC, and for various reasons didn't go anywhere. To which my response is, well, here's an opportunity. Tell your story, put the stake in the ground, because the more evidence that we can build out, the more likely it is that we can get change. And they said, well, I'm very skeptical. It's not. Is it really worth it, right? I guess what I would say, and I think you'd probably agree with me, John, this is a great opportunity to really push through, because we've actually got now the Parliament malleable, and we can put enough evidence in front of them. There's a significant opportunity to make some change. It's not straightforward, but now is the time.
Indeed, indeed. One of the things I think, Martin, we should share with the audience is that what Martin and I typically do at the beginning of every year, we have a broad conversation about in the interest of the people, what we'd like to do, where we want to take the show, and the types of issues we want to focus on. Yep. But we had a conversation in January last year when we had the opportunity to connect face to face with COVID and everything happening back then with lockdowns. And one of the things, Martin, that I told you was that for 2022, 12 months ago, I didn't want to just do commentary or analysis, which various people do, and obviously that's very legitimate. I want to ensure that we're committed to a course of action, and that we're not just talking for the sake of talking, but we're actually doing things in the real world. And so that was the goal that I had, and at that time in January when we first discussed this, I was still doing the Adams investigation, and before I sent my 600 pages to ASIC. And so I think we can say confidently and objectively that 2022, I think we did achieve what we wanted to do, which was we wanted real action in the real world. And now in 2023, for me personally, and we haven't had this discussion yet, I do want real outcomes. So now there is something that is going to happen in the next few weeks that Martin and I are aware of. So we do have, I have some bombshell information, and I've been warned, if I can be so public, the people have warned me not to reveal this information to the Parliament, but I'm going to go ahead and do it because I even though we are getting outcomes, even though we are moving the needle, we are getting action, I am still frustrated with how certain events are happening in this country. And so even though there are risks, even though there are voices out there saying, hold your horses, calm down. Now, I think this year is really to go all out, to go all in. It is the year of the revolution, and I'm going to, not be scared and just push as aggressively as I can, and let's see what the chips fall.
And I think that's important, John, isn't it? Because there are people who basically express opinions from the sidelines, and there are people who actually get involved to try and move the dial and actually make things happen, right? And clearly what we wanted to do on IOTP was do more than just talk about stuff.
Yes.
We actually wanted to make a difference. And so far, if you think of the cash ban, we made a difference there with the ASIC inquiry, and there's more to come. So there are a number of important issues that we're going to be pushing quite hard at.
Sure. Probably one point I would just say, Martin, is that where I think some of our viewers would take the view that things are really moving in the right direction is if heads roll. And that's one thing that I'll be judging myself on in 2023. Can we get certain people sacked or removed from public office where that is justified? And there are a number of targets I have where I want people to be out of their jobs or out of Parliament, whether it's federal or state. And I think we have the information and the opportunity to make heads roll. And I think if we can show people that it's not just about public policy and actually getting reform, but actually changing the people that have caused the problems to begin with, and we can get new people and new leadership, I think that will give people confidence that things can be different in this country. And so that's one of the things that I'm publicly now saying for the first time. I'm targeting certain people. I wanted to get them out of their jobs this year, and if we can achieve that hopefully will give people confidence that this channel and this platform is not just about action, it's about driving real change in the real world, that people can say, hey, it wasn't that they just got an inquiry that resulted in certain people being fired, and now those problem people are now out of their jobs, and we can actually move forward to hopefully a better set of outcomes.
I've got this vision, John, in your new office, your new shiny office with your stand-up desk and everything else. On the wall, a series of photographs, right, mug shots of your targets, right? I know that I'm making that up, but the point is, there are some people who are actually in the firing line because they have not done the right thing.
100%. So now, as we go forward in the next 29 days, Martin, is that maybe we should just bring the website up for the inquiry webpage. And so a number of people have said, how do I make a submission? So the best way to do it is to go to the inquiry webpage. There is a lot of information on the Parliament website about how to make a submission. Now, the best way to do it is to write a submission, make it into a PDF document, and then you go through a formal uploading process. And the one thing I will say, Martin, is I've already made my submission. I made it just before New Year's Eve, 106 pages, my primary submission. And I use the word primary because there is very likely going to be a supplementary submission, which is going to be the big bombshell that we're going to bring to the Parliament's attention in the next few weeks. But so I've already made my contribution. Now, I have spoken to one member of the committee in the last couple of days. So everyone in Parliament land is still on holiday mode. So even if you get your submissions in early, things are unlikely to be looked at until after Australia Day. So we do have a bit of time, but for those people, if people don't take this opportunity, in my view, I have no sympathy if you have lost money and you've got sour grapes. So, if there is a problem and ASIC failed to take action, or if they took disproportionate action, now is the time to have your say and to fully reveal what happened, because if you don't, you have no right to complain after the 3rd of February.
And again, it's just, I think, worth underscoring, John, that the whole idea of the inquiry, particularly the submissions, is to demonstrate to everybody just how deep and broken ASIC is. There are so many case studies, so many examples around the place where they clearly have not done their job. But we have to collate those and get them in front of Parliament. And so this is what the mechanism is trying to do, right? So the more that we've got in terms of weight of numbers, but also spread in terms of the range of issues that we can actually point to, the better the inquiry will be.
That is something that I would completely endorse, Martin. Now, one of talking about the systemic failures and the ongoing failures and how wide and in terms of the failures are. One of the shocking things that I picked up in December, Martin, is that at the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Corporations and Financial Services, they're actually running a separate inquiry into corporate insolvency. Now, corporate insolvency is an important aspect because ASIC basically registers in terms of the liquidators, but also the liquidators are required by law to provide statutory reports to ASIC when there is any wrongdoing. And these statistics were part of my analysis. So I looked at 3 types of data sources: reports of alleged misconduct from the public, what they call breach reports, or what now they call reportable situation, which is from Australian Financial Services license holders or auditors, and then there was these liquidators. So the Southland inquiry is looking specifically into the whole regime of liquidation, or particularly around corporate insolvency, and then figuring out why is there so many problems in that particular sector. Now, there was a couple of public hearings on the 13th and 14th of December where they brought in a range of experts to take questions about the insolvency industry. And so there was one on the second day of hearings, they actually heard from the Australian Restructuring, Insolvency and Turnaround Association, and there were some specific questions from Senator O'Neill and Senator Scar about, well, what happens when liquidators go to ASIC with a report of alleged misconduct? And here is a very shocking revelation that the president of this organization, so he's a professional liquidator, but he also sits as the president of the industry body. He said he gave a specific personal example where he submitted a report of alleged misconduct as a liquidator, cost him about $5,000 of professional fees to put the report together, and he received a no further action notification in 45 seconds. So, Martin, Martin, why don't we just put this on the screen and let me just quote directly from Hansard, quote, we've recently lodged a report with ASIC. Within 45 seconds, we got a no further action response from ASIC. So clearly they've got an AI system in the background that's automated, that reviews the reports, and you get instantaneous response that no further action is being undertaken in relation to that particular report. Now, Martin, you're very tech savvy, so you know all about artificial intelligence. And I think, you know, if we're going to be completely transparent here, they have said I think there were some hearings in, I think it was around October, before the House of Representatives, where they did say they use software to screen documents that they get, and that helps provide some sifting process to find out which are the quality reports and which are the non-quality reports, so that they can actually make the assessment process more efficient. But I don't care how smart this artificial intelligence is. If you're getting a response literally in 45 seconds saying no further action, that says to me that the process, whatever software they're using, is completely broken. So now Senator Scarr and Senator O'Neill were completely shocked by what this individual had to say, who I've done some background checking, is a highly competent liquidator and who's respected within the industry. So when he says this, I mean, you take it to the bank. And so ASIC was asked to respond to this, which they're expected to this month. But I've actually brought this whole issue into my submission and said that I've said to the Senate Economics References Committee that they need to look at this particular testimony from this other inquiry and actually examine how is ASIC assessing these reports. Are they using artificial intelligence systems, and how effective are they?
Well, John, it's very interesting, isn't it? Because AI can do some really good things, but if they've put a submission in and 45 seconds later you've got that would suggest to me that they've either got a quota system, right? So they've had more than 20 and they're only going to look at 2, so you're not in the 2, or there's some other weird process gone. So it'd be very interesting to see what ASIC say. And again, it's interesting because a number of people that I've had contact with in the last few weeks on this have all said something rather similar, which is that they got a very quick response, negative response. And so their question is, well, so how much due diligence do they actually do on a submission before they decide not to progress it? That's going to be I think, a very important part of the inquiry.
Yes. And the one thing I'll say, Martin, is that when I went to ASIC physically on the 6th of April, I actually went with a physical paper-based folder, 600 pages, with a USB. So I actually said, I'm here to lodge my report, and here is my physical report. And when I arrived at the office, their first question is that, have you actually used our online portal, or have you spoken to someone on the phone? And my defense was, the portal won't accept 103 attachments. Now, if truth be told, I never attempted to use the portal because of how complex this is, and with all the documents, etc. And given from other stories that I had heard during that time of what actually would make an effective submission, I decided, no, the best thing to do is to physically walk it in, and to get a physical receipt to say that they acknowledge that they have received it. So thank God I actually did that, because had I spent $50,000, sent 600 pages through some sort of AI system, we could have been here. We could have got a negative response within 45 seconds, and you think to yourself, what the hell was that all worth? So it's very interesting. You should say that people are talking about something very, very similar, because whatever system they're using, I think this is going to be evidence of them just clearly not doing their job, because when they say there's no further action in 45 seconds, I mean, that's evidence of, it's evidence of no assessment, because there can be no proper assessment of the law in 45 seconds.
I agree, John. And again, it's worth, I think, saying to our viewers, if you've had that experience, so effectively an almost immediate worth documenting it and making a submission, because I think
Absolutely.
The weight of evidence on this is going to be quite important, right? Because my hypothesis is there's a lot of that gone on. So a lot of people never pass the first hurdle, and that's a problem.
Well, yes. So in my own report where I showed that the rate of no further action has gone through the roof, if that's because of some pre-configured AI bots that's basically pre-programmed to reject this stuff, I mean, I think that's going to be scary in and of itself. I mean, if the whole assessment process is rigged against ASIC doing their job under law, it's like, what are these officials doing? And some of these people are being paid $500,000 plus.
Well, you could see things like if there's an hour in the month or if the sun is shining. I mean, who knows? But the point is the experience, the lived experience of a number of people is that they got a very quick rejection. And I think the question of substance here is really important.
Absolutely. So Martin, to bring the show to a close, we are going to spend some more time. I mean, I think a lot of people would hope that we get back onto macroeconomics, and that will come. But as we march on in the next 29 days, this is the time when everyone is sitting back, enjoying summer, looking at the tennis, looking at the cricket, etc. Now is the time to do the work, because as the Parliament comes back after Australia Day, if we give them the material, I am confident that we are going to see some dramatic scenes in the next few months, and that's separate to the bombshell that is coming from me by the end of the month.
Yep. So there's a very important message here to anybody who has got a bone to pick with ASIC. There's a mechanism now. You can make a submission. Links and things are below. And this will help to really drive this home in the interest of the people.
Indeed. And if someone needs some assistance or some guidance, I would encourage them to email me or email you. And we're happy to steer people in the broad direction of how to go about doing this if people are uncertain about what is the right way to proceed.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I've had a few requests, and in some cases I've been able to help. In other cases it's too complicated and I've had to push them in other directions. But yeah, this is a really important opportunity, isn't it, John?
Absolutely.
Thanks for your time today, and I'll look forward to the next one.
Well, one final point, if I may, Martin, is that it's very interesting you should say that this is a good opportunity, because, dare I say, after 2023, and these inquiries may go into 2024, the next time that this opportunity may come about to tell your story to the Parliament about ASIC, it may not be for another decade. Because the last time there was an inquiry was 2014, which is 8 years ago. So it could well be, if you don't take this opportunity now, it could be 2029 to 2030, and who knows if you and I are still going to be alive then. Whether you have that opportunity in the interim to be able to tell your story. So people need to keep that in mind. Yep. Maybe once in a decade opportunity to really hit home the point. And I would implore people not to allow this opportunity to go to waste.
Great point, John. Thank you very much for that. Martin North, John Adams, in the interest of the people. We'll see you next time.